Okay, good morning, everyone. Monday, August 22nd. Will the clerk call the roll?
Good morning. Good morning, calling the roll for the Monday, August 22nd Board of Control meeting. It is 11:01 a.m. We have Nan Baker.
Here.
Dale Miller.
Here.
Jim Boyle serving as an alternate for Pernell Jones.
Present.
Nicole English serving as an alternate for Mike Dever. Mike Chambers serving as an alternate for the executive.
Here.
Lee Tucker serving as an alternate for the fiscal officer.
Here.
Paul Porter.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval for the minutes of August 15th. I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Lee Tucker. All in favor to approve the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Is there any public comment?
No public comment.
Then let's go on to our first item.
The first item is BC 2022-499, Department of Public Works submitting an amendment to contract number 1710 with Katz Construction Incorporated for the rehabilitation of Union Street from Broadway Avenue North to Broadway Avenue South in the city of Bedford for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $7,571.74. Recommending to accept construction as complete and in accordance with plans and specifications, requesting authority for the county treasurer to release the escrow amount in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code, Section 153.63. This is just a
It is, your light's on.
this is the final closeout of a
Thank you, Nicole. Are there questions from the board on this item? Seeing no questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
The next item is BC 2022-500, Department of Public Works submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in award recommendation to Interstate Safety and Service Company in the total amount not to exceed $27,269.18 to pay various outstanding invoices for purchases of limestone construction materials for various projects with sanitary division for the period July 19, 2021 through January 27, 2022, and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Public Works. This item is requesting approval of a purchase order. It's Interstate. It's a dollar amount of $27,269.18. It's to cover some leftover invoices from our past vendor that we used to utilize for our limestone for our sanitary division's construction projects.
Thank you, Mr. Pavich. Is there questions from the board on this item? Please, Councilwoman.
I'm just curious, and the question I asked, and I wasn't sure if that really answered it. I understand that the audit found these invoices not to be paid, but why didn't the supplier ask, why aren't I being paid?
So this is a vendor that the county's utilized, I'm told, 10, 12, 15 years. So they're used to periods where they don't get paid on time, I believe. This is my assumption. And often what happens at the beginning of the year, the fiscal office is closing books down, starting up new books. So there's delays in payments anyways going out to the vendor. I believe, it was several months before he reached out, and then that's when we realized we did have some leftover payments due to this vendor. So, this isn't like a good that you buy a box of something. This is limestone where they come with a dump truck and dump it in a giant fill about the size of this room. And it was set up on like an auto delivery process. That was the relationship with it due to the volume that we utilize. So there's a lot of questions as to opposed to when it was delivered and were we able to validate it.
If I may, so
Please.
if we were not audited, would this vendor even know that those invoices were due? Would that vendor realize that he had invoices outstanding?
Well, I think it was when the vendor reached out to us earlier this year that we realized that we did have some invoices. We did see the invoices come through eventually. So, eventually the vendor did reach out to us, and we have a good relationship with this vendor. So, it was a collaboration. That's how we found that one that was from July. That was, I think, just a misapplied payment.
So he prompted the audit.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Boyle?
Are we still working with in a contractual relationship with this vendor?
No, no. So this was an old vendor. So we did a formal bid. We awarded to a new vendor. This is just to close out that
So they were
relationship.
closing out all
Yep.
of their billings and
Yes.
their
And
accounts
we had
receivable.
just started a new vendor relationship with a new vendor that was formally bid out.
What do they use with, what do they do with this lime?
So when our sanitary, I mean, Mike, you could even chime in too, but some of our sanitary crews went,
Well, now, you know?
well, I understand that, but
Heck, I mean, if it has to do with the money, yeah.
but he's all knowledge.
Okay.
So, but when our sanitary crew goes, they dig up a street or a property, they use it as backfill.
Oh,
So they
okay.
fill it in, runoff. There's, I think, 3 different sizes we utilize. Some of it's really crushed, some of it's larger size, so
But
it's
Tom-
used daily, multiple shifts.
Tom, let me add, though, is it not, you wait for your team members at sanitary to send you the packing slips that they actually
Yes.
receive this, so you
Yes.
won't pay an invoice until you get that
Yes,
support.
and
so
we're charged
sometimes
based
that
on
could be
it.
part of it.
Yes, so, and we're charged based on tonnage that's delivered, so it's weighed at their facility. So, yeah, there's an entire process that goes into this.
So you have to match that with the invoice, so maybe that's where some of the delay came, we didn't get the packing slips, so. Additional questions on the item? Okay, Tom, and you believe you got everything cleaned up?
Yep,
Okay, and the new contract, you got a good handle on that?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we already met with him and went over fine details in the beginning and then just recently again.
Okay.
Yep.
Seeing no further questions, I'll make a motion to approve the item. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Boyle. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item's approved. Next item, please.
The next item is BC 2022-501, Department of Public Works submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to Northern Flooring Specialists in the amount not to exceed $9,859.53 for the purchase of replacement shawl carpet tiles and related flooring materials for the Court of Common Pleas office located in Jail 1, 3rd floor, and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Tom Pavich again, Public Works. This is requesting approval of a purchase order with Northern Flooring. This is for materials only to be used in the offices as part of the central booking project. Our trades will be doing the installation of the materials. It's listed as an exemption because one of the 3 items is not on state contract. We initially submitted this as a state contract. We found, actually just last Wednesday, that 10% of the invoice total was non-state contract. That's why it's coming forward as an exemption as opposed to a state contract.
Thank you, Tom. Questions from the board? Councilwoman, please.
Just for clarification, I think I remember asking in the past why some things aren't put on capital fund because they're a lower amount, and we don't typically put low amounts on capital funds. Is there a reason why $9,000 is considered capital,
I believe because it's part of central booking, the overall central booking capital project.
part of a bigger pot?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, and this is just, I think, to fulfill some of the offices.
Okay, thank you.
With the larger projects, they set up an actual budget. You know, some of the smaller items you may think are really expendable. That makes sense.
Deducted from that total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item, please.
Thank you.
The next item is BC 2022-502, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Office of Early Childhood, submitting an amendment to contract 1949 with Child Care Resource Center of Cuyahoga County, doing business as starting point for implementation and management of the Child Care Access and Quality Expansion Program for the period January 1, 2022 through December 31st, 2023, to modify the contract terms to decrease the required cyber risk insurance coverage from $3 million per claim per aggregate to $2 million per claim per aggregate, effective June 1st, 2022, and for the additional funds in the amount not to exceed $10,498.81. Also, there's a correction to the funding source for it to be 100% from the Cleveland Foundation grant.
Good morning, Marcos Cortez, Health and Human Services, on behalf of the Office of Early Childhood. Again, this is a contract amendment with starting point for our CCAQE program. We're adding $10,000 from the Cleveland Foundation to support our LENA component of that program and to reduce their cyber risk from $3 million to $2 million.
Okay, thank you, Marcos. Are there questions from the board on this item? Please, Councilwoman.
Two quick ones. One is, did I hear you say 100% was going to the Cleveland Foundation grant?
Yeah, that 10,000 is from the Cleveland Foundation.
So no longer the HHS levy?
No, the overall program is a much larger, and that funding source is from the HHS levy.
Okay, good. And thank you for the explanation on the cyber risk insurance. This was, I got two notes. One saying there was going to be a meeting this morning to kind of discuss that maybe in a bigger picture. And then this note this morning saying that from the law department that it's adequate. But is, the question was, and you had a meeting with IT, is IT on board?
Correct. We actually had a meeting this morning, Councilwoman Baker. Marcos was there, Jared was there, the risk manager, Awatif Assad, and then Jeremy Mio and Andy Johnson from IT were both present. As we talked through this one, when the county procures insurance, they involve the relevant stakeholders for those specific subject matter areas. IT was consulted as part of, establishing kind of our baseline for cyber risk insurance coverage. When these contracts are looked at on a case-by-case basis, that's the risk manager, Awatif, that handles that, per the county code. But in general, her take on cyber risk insurance is that she helps establish that in conjunction with the IT department. Jeremy Mio kind of works hand in hand with her as the county staff member who's most involved with, kind of the cyber risk assessment for both the county and for applicable vendors as well. The end result of that meeting was that, again, this was looked at thoroughly, and that while general guidelines for cyber risk insurance are established kind of on a broader scale, Awatif is empowered to make kind of contract by contract decisions based on an analysis of the specific services that contract covers. Does that help?
That helps. I know Andy Johnson has been very, I think from the beginning, even before he was hired, telling us that our security for cyber risk is very vulnerable. And he was going to suggest a series, even going through ERP, all the challenges there, that this was going to be front and center for us. And I just want to make sure that we're not working in silos and that everybody is talking to each other and that he is understanding and supporting of what we're doing when we lower cyber insurance coverage.
Absolutely. And to be clear, Awatif's take on this specific request, as well as the one from last week, is that the county is still adequately shielded from risk based on a thorough evaluation of this specific contract.
Okay. And that we're not paying more on our end to cover what we may be reducing in individual contracts. We're all understanding what we're doing here, and it doesn't impact us anywhere else.
Correct. My understanding is the county maintains substantial cyber risk insurance coverage if there were to be a breach on our end of things.
Right.
The vendor-specific policies would cover if there was a breach on the vendor's end, once the data goes from the county to the vendor.
Right.
And Awatif's assessment with this specific vendor is that the $2 million is still adequate coverage to shield, that data from risk.
Well, thank you for looking into it. I appreciate the explanation.
You're welcome.
Great. Sure. Mr. Boyle, please.
I think my question is to law. It sounds, Paul, what you've articulated is that there are some set criteria for what the analysis is if somebody is asking for a decrease in cyber insurance. And so is that something, is there a listing or any type of, what are those criteria that you guys look at? And I don't need it today because I know, but if that's something that you can get to me just so that we can have moving forward some level of continuity so that the next vendor that comes through there, if there's a checklist or whatever it is, if you can get that to me, that'd be great.
This is Jared from the law department. We can do that. That's something that Awatif would have. I know she wasn't able to attend today, but we'll relay that question to her and she can provide that.
Because as I
circle back
look
with
at this one, again, not knowing the specifics, Marco, you might know better than this. I mean, this strikes me as a contract that's gonna necessarily have potential HIPAA and/or identities within the grouping of people that will be subject to this contract. Those are the type of things that I think cyber insurance is really geared towards preventing the exposure of that. So when I look at this contract, just from a outsider's perspective, this is the type of one that I'd be like, wow, well, this strikes me that we should have the most, and I'm just curious to know what the criteria was. So that's all I'm asking. I think that's more for, not for you, Marco, but more for law.
And just consider too that I believe this is a small business, SBE enterprise.
Correct.
At least
I
that's what was
believe so.
referenced in this, in Awatis' writing here. So, I mean, maybe that's part of it, trying to help with the small business. So, I mean,
And
she
just-
referenced that.
Well, I mean, with all due respect, I mean, the size of the business is certainly relevant to their ability to pay, but I'm not remotely concerned about the size of the vendor as I am the protection of the.
Sure, absolutely.
Sure.
Yep.
And I'd have to double check. They are a nonprofit, so I'm not sure if they qualify as
Okay.
an SBE.
I was just reading what she
Yeah.
wrote here, so maybe I'm misreading it.
They are smaller. They're a
I got
smaller agency.
Okay, good. So you'll get, Jared, you'll work with that? All right, great. Any additional questions on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to make a motion to approve the item as amended for the funding source to 100%.
And if I could, Mr. Chair,
Sure.
I'd like to recuse myself from the vote on this
Okay,
item.
duly noted. Great. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Boyle. All in favor to approve the item, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And we have one recusal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, consent agenda, please.
Moving on to the consent agenda, we have items BC 2022-503 through BC 2022-505.
Board members, it's kind of a short consent agenda item. Do we have any questions or comments on this? Mr. Boyle? No? Did go down, yes. Mhm. I'll take credit for that.
You're welcome.
It's okay.
Oh, now you're in favor. Let's put you back in public works.
So, okay, well, seeing no questions or comments on the consent agenda, I will make a motion to approve as listed. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Boyle. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Do we have any other business?
No other business,
No other business. At that time, any other public comment?
no public comment.
Okay, I will make a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Lee Tucker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?